The New Orleans Saints, considerable underdogs on the road in the Bay Area up against the San Francisco 49ers, but do they have what it takes to come up with a huge upset this weekend? We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this crossover Thursday episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Saints. We're here to get you ready for the San Francisco 49ers hosting the New Orleans Saints. We appreciate you very much for joining us here on Locked On 49ers and Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate you making us your first listen of the day as well. And very glad to be here. We've got myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola, host of Locked On Saints, Brian Peacock, at BD Peacock on Twitter, host of Locked On 49ers, and Eric Crocker, at Eric_Crocker, former NFL cornerback and co-host of Locked On 49ers, as well as Locked On NFL Draft. You can catch Brian twice a day, too, if you go and listen to Peacock and Williamson. Almost said Locked On Peacock and Williamson. That can work. That can work. We can do that. We appreciate y'all for joining us. Yeah, right. We appreciate y'all for joining us for this crossover Thursday edition. Don't forget that today's episode is brought to you by friends over at Prize Picks. It's super easy. It is daily fantasy the way that it should be. Daily fantasy made easy. 2 to 5 players. Just pick them. It's you against the house. Your football knowledge of matchups, all that good stuff. Not against any ghost lineups or playing for a big pot of money or anything like that. Instead, you just get 2 to 5 players. You pick whether you're going to come in at more or less than their Prize Picks projection. Get those right. 10 times your entry. You can win up to that much by simply spending about 60 seconds is all that it takes at the mid. So as I've been telling you about it, you could have already put in your entry and be on your way to an even happier Thanksgiving. So make sure you go and check them out. prizepicks.com. Don't forget to use the promo code Locked On so that you can get that 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. Once again, that's Prize Picks, promo code Locked On. BP, Croc, happy Thanksgiving to the both of you. How is everything going over in Locked On 49ers land when you talk about the biggest story for these 49ers? I'm sure you're coming off of a big time win on Monday night. Stuff probably looked really good. Croc, we'll start with you. What's the biggest story for those 49ers coming in?
I think it starts with Jimmy Garoppolo and how he's played as of late. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is viewed as someone who's more of a trailer than a truck, somebody that's kind of hitching along on the ride. But as of late, I think he's been even more of a contributor than that. He's making all the right throws as far as, moving the sticks. He's been really good even when they're behind on downs. He has not turned the ball over, and I think that's one of the major keys that's kind of led to some of the success that he's had. And third downs, he's been money. He's just playing at a very high level for Jimmy Garoppolo. And we don't expect him to look like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or even Justin Herbert and what it could probably look like in this 49ers offense. But for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he's played some really good football, and that's probably the biggest storyline in 49ers land right now.
That makes perfect sense. BP, from your perspective, what are you looking at here as the biggest story coming into this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking off what Croc is talking about, how good the 49ers are playing right now, almost has me worried because as we know in the NFL, it is chaos. And I've talked about it and I've preached it on Locked On 49ers. We saw it with the Vikings, right? You go beat the Bills, the best team in the NFL. You're 8-1, and then you get blown out 40-3 by the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen it with the New Orleans Saints this year, a couple times. It's like, okay, Saints are back. Here we go. Rolling, right? And then the next week, maybe you lay an egg. I'm a little bit worried. Short week. Traveled twice last week to Colorado Springs, then back to Mexico City. Big win, monumentous win. The best we've seen him play, combined offense, defense throughout the year. Jimmy Garoppolo, too. I get worried there's a little bit of a trap game element to this. Looking ahead, there's the Seahawks, there's Tom Brady, and there's, Mike McDaniel, former 49ers coach, all on the schedule next that would be, quote unquote, bigger games than the Saints this week. So, I would say the vibes, the 49ers almost riding too high right now. Can it be this good? Are they this good of a team where they're just going to start rolling people in the second half of the year? Because that's what it looks like. But man, the nature of the NFL, covering the NFL daily, not just the 49ers, but the rest of the league, seeing how it goes up and down, the ebbs and flows throughout the season for every team, has me a little bit worried that there is the makings of a trap game here for the 49ers against the Saints.
Yeah, and I think the New Orleans Saints would love to play spoiler in this situation. The issue is that the football team is struggling so far this season, and I think even to an unprecedented or unexpected amount. But we did see them have a nice game up against the Los Angeles Rams last Sunday, and I think that's where the biggest story comes in for the New Orleans Saints. You know, you're kind of hoping that San Francisco here is playing the role of Icarus, flying a little bit too close to the sun here, because the Saints should be able to take advantage of it, assuming that they're able to do two things, one of which is get healthy, which is a trend that's already started at the beginning of the practice week here. And then the other is taking advantage of the momentum that they started to build up against Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. Let's face it, the Los Angeles Rams, not the great football team that they were last year, not the great football team that they have been in the recent past, but you needed to get a win last week, and you did if you're the New Orleans Saints. So there's still momentum there nonetheless. The big piece is, can they also get healthy in time? We saw Marshon Lattimore return to practice dealing with a lacerated kidney that's kept him out since the Seattle Seahawks game, week 5. I'm not sure that he plays, though. It's probably more so kind of like checking in to figure out exactly where he is, but still a good sign. We saw Bradley Roby return to practice. The two defensive ends, Marcus Davenport and Cam Jordan, who had an orbital bone fracture last week, which kept him out. First game he's missed in his 160-plus game career due to injury, had a COVID absence last year. And so can they get healthy enough to give the San Francisco 49ers a run for their money this week? I think that's the biggest thing that you're going to be watching. Croc, I know you also had kind of a B story here in terms of looking over at the defensive side of the football for San Francisco, right?
Yeah, well, really, Cam Jordan going up against Mike McGlinchey. And McGlinchey's kind of been up and down, but as a whole, the 49ers offensive line playing fairly well. But Mike McGlinchey, if there is a weak spot, it might be him. He gets bullied, he gets bulldozed, he gets knocked on his butt. Last game, 0 sacks, 0 pressures. Can he keep that going? I think the way it's kind of trending, you would say maybe no with how he's played throughout this year, but that is the matchup to watch, because if Cam Jordan just wrecks shop on that side, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for Jimmy Garoppolo to have that clean game that I originally talked about. So last game, and I probably should have talked about this, but there was 0 pressures, 0 sacks. Most quarterbacks would play a lot better in that type of situation. Cam Jordan get more pressure on Jimmy because he's beaten Mike McGlinchey. If Mike McGlinchey can hold up against Cam, then I think that kind of even works more in the 49ers' favor.
Yeah, we're going to get to more key matchups here in a little while. I know that you're also riding high on the strong performance of the San Francisco 49ers team. Something like 3 games in a row, they've done something pretty unique.
Yeah, no defensive points in the second half. 3 straight games. Yeah. You know, now, you played against the Chargers. That is an offense that can be high flying, but they did not have Mike Williams. They did not have Keenan Allen. They did not have Guyton, and they continue to not have Guyton. So they're missing a lot of firepower there. I think that definitely worked in the 49ers' favor. Worked against the Rams, Los Angeles Rams, almost called them St. Louis. Shut them out in the second half. That was
They're playing like the St. Louis Rams right now. They don't deserve to be Los Angeles Rams.
I know, right? And then last game against the Cardinals, albeit playing with Colt McCoy and 4 replacements on the offensive line for them. So there's a little context there that works in the 49ers' favor. But overall, I mean, it's the NFL. We know, just last year, the 49ers got their butts kicked by the Arizona Cardinals, led by Colt McCoy, and there was no DeAndre Hopkins, there was no AJ Green, there was no Kyler Murray. They were missing plenty of players. 49ers still lost. So a win is a win. The 49ers defense has played very, very well in the second half of this year, or in the second half of games over the last 3 games.
Yeah. So we'll get to more key matchups here in a little bit. Croc, I know you've got more on Cam Jordan and that Mike McGlinchey matchup, why that's so important. We're also going to take a look at an outstanding rookie for the New Orleans Saints that I know you guys are keeping an eye out on as well. We'll get to that here as we continue on with today's crossover Thursday episode, Locked On 49ers and Locked On Saints here as a part of Locked On Podcast Network. And today's episode is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at BetterHelp. Now, guys, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I talk about it all the time, every time that I get an opportunity to kind of pitch BetterHelp to folks, stuff like that. So if you're somebody that's looking for or considering therapy, you've thought about it and things like that, BetterHelp is absolutely a place that you should go and check out, because it's all of the conveniences, all the things that you would usually experience with in-person therapy, but it's 100% from the comfort of your own home, 100% online, makes it so much easier, and it's more accessible, more convenient, and more affordable as well. All you have to do is take a brief questionnaire as you start up. That way, they also make sure that you get matched up with a therapist that feels like the right fit for you. And if you aren't clicking, don't worry about it. it's actually free and easy to switch so that you can try somebody else. Hard enough to admit when you're ready to seek out the help, even harder to find the help that's a good match for you, but BetterHelp helps to take care of all of that. So if you feel stuck, get unstuck with BetterHelp. You can learn more and save 10% off of your first month over at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, guys, continuing on with this crossover Thursday episode, Locked On 49ers. We got Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker in the building. Locked On Saints, Ross Jackson here. Taking a look at this New Orleans Saints and San Francisco 49ers matchup. Before we let Croc pick up where he was with Cam Jordan and Mike McGlinchey, Brian Peacock has taken a look at a very special player in the city of New Orleans. He's going to tell us a little bit more about that as we look at key matchups. We appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, for your second listen, also go and check out Locked On Sports today. Our good friend Peter Bukowski hosting, making sure you got everything you need to know around the world of sports, and maybe, going off on Aaron Rodgers every now and then, because he tends to do that. So you can go check that out. You can find it on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. BP, that outstanding rookie in New Orleans, I know he's on your mind.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that the New Orleans Saints got the second best Ohio State wide receiver, but still got the second best rookie wide receiver in the draft. I really like Garrett Wilson, but Olave's doing things. And as long as he has a quarterback that can facilitate that, I think he's going to be a really good player in the league. And we're already seeing that as a rookie. He's so savvy. My co-host for Peacock and Williamson, Matt Williamson, compared him to Stephon Diggs. And I like that comparison there too, because he's smooth. He can get open. I like the dime that Andy Dalton threw to him last week. Can you take advantage of the loss of Emmanuel Mosley on one corner from the 49ers early in the season, torn ACL? You've got Diamador Lenore, and the 49ers are still playing well. I don't think the secondary is a weakness by any means, but if you can get some looks, and we saw it early in the Chargers game, we saw the human Dortch last week, along with DeAndre Hopkins, combining for 18 catches. So there are plays to be made on the 49ers defense, especially when they have to respect the run game. Now, the thing 49ers have done so well is make teams one-dimensional, and Croc mentioned it with what they have done on the defensive side of the ball in the second half. And the 49ers came out running last week in the second half, 8 of 9. And it was very I see the Dome Patrol in the background there, Ross, and it's making me a little nostalgic for the old NFC West. It was like the 49ers were Bill Walshian last week, spreading the ball around, with Jimmy Garoppolo doing his best Joe Montana and moving around, being efficient, hitting the ball in different levels of the field, getting out of the pocket, making plays, making it look easy, facilitating his, Rice and John Taylor and Rathman and Roger Craig and Brent Jones. It's like, that's what the 49ers have. They have all these weapons, and they were all utilized. Throwing for points early, then running with the lead late. And I loved seeing that from Kyle Shanahan. And that really bodes well for the 49ers defense to be able to pitch shutouts. 54-0 is what they've been those 3 games in the second half combined. But to be able to play that bully ball, you have to have that lead. So can the Saints early get up on the 49ers, maybe utilize the running game and Kamara out of the backfield because of those defensive tackles that have been out for the 49ers, and their reserves have been playing really well too, but they're missing both their starters there. Can you move the ball, get out in space, maybe hit one over the top with Chris Olave, not be behind going into the second half, make it more difficult for the 49ers in the second half of the game? That'd be a huge key for those New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, big time series of matchups to watch in terms of how the New Orleans Saints are able to or try to move the ball in this one. Croc, you were talking earlier about Cam Jordan and Mike McGlinchey. You might see Marcus Davenport back on the other side as well. He was back at practice today. What about a little bit more on those big defensive ends that could cause some issues for Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, Davenport plays on the other side, and he's going up against Trent Williams. And Trent Williams just coming off of his highest run grade ever in his career.
You know why? Because he stopped tipping plays. That's why.
So if people don't know the backstory on that, there's been this big storyline amongst the 49ers. They went really big in the media with his stance. If it's a run play, he stands a certain way. If it's a pass play, stands a certain way. He said it's not a big deal. A lot of former NFL players said it's not a big deal. And I think he went out there to prove on Monday Night Football that It is not a big deal. And even if you know what's coming, you don't know exactly what is coming or how they're going to do it. And the execution is all that matters. Now, as far as Davenport goes, he's going to have to execute at a high level to consistently try to beat Trent Williams, or at the very least make him uncomfortable. And somehow, some way, this is a guy who we view as like, is he ever going to get old? He's like 34 years old. He hasn't showed any signs of really slowing down outside of a few injuries in the last season. So I think that's going to be the tough matchup for the Saints, trying to get pressure off of the left side of the 49ers offensive line against Trent Williams. It's been very difficult really throughout his tenure as a 49er.
Yeah. I expect the New Orleans Saints to give some second level help in the pass rush, particularly over on that side. Guys like Caden Ellis, Demario Davis try to create a little bit of conflict for Trent Williams. But if they can't fool him, somebody who's been around for a long time, he's seen it all, not very likely you're going to get past him, especially after last week's performance for sure on that Monday Night Football game. That Monday Night Football massacre, if I may say so, of the Arizona Cardinals.
If the Saints win, they get to come back to the NFC West and the Cardinals have to leave. I think
there you go.
Be at stake because that was terrible. That's how bad the Cardinals were.
That would be nice for the Saints to have some actual rivalries for a change, too. You know what I mean?
I miss the old NFC West. I hate the Falcons more than the Saints. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Great. I do want to ask Ross a little bit about Demario Davis, because this is a guy who I was actually there when he was with the New York Jets, and he was not viewed the same way as he's viewed now. So to see it feels like more of he's like the emotional leader. He's flying around. I see him blitzing. What is his usage going to be like against the 49ers? Obviously, the 49ers have a tandem of running backs that's looking to really trending upward with Christian McCaffrey. He's catching the ball out the backfield. You have the hammer and Elijah Mitchell. But if there's anybody that can kind of slow that down a little bit, it's probably Demario Davis. So what is his whole thing going to be when they face the 49ers?
Yeah, actually, that'll help me transition into my matchups too, because we've got it's going to be kind of three key players for the Saints defense. Demario Davis is absolutely one of those guys. You can mix Caden Ellis, who's been outstanding, filling in for injured linebacker Pete Werner over the course of the past couple of games. But Demario Davis's usage is going to be a lot of off ball. Now, we know how it goes, right? Every linebacker, every defender is run first. So every defender is on ball first, and then they'll transition off ball. So he'll have a lot of those responsibilities. But they're going to be very selective about when they have him rush the passer. He's rushing the passer right now at about half the rate that he did last year. Last year, he averaged around about 7 pass rush snaps per game. This year, it's around 4, but he's got a career high in sacks. He just had his 7th against Los Angeles Rams. So he's been really efficient in there, but don't expect him to do it a lot. For the most part, he's going to be sitting back in coverage and, of course, helping with all of the run fits and then playing the run first as always. So expect him to get involved in the pass rush game, but don't expect that to be kind of his main focus or even a super high level of focus. You're going to save that kind of for the late and long downs where they can get some pressure on the quarterback and pin their ears back a little bit. The other two defensive players that I'll mention that are keys for the Saints, and this all just kind of goes into one conversation here, Paulson, Adebo, and Alontae Taylor on the outside, matching up with guys like Brandon Aiyuk, as well as, of course, Deebo Samuel. And when I say matching up with them, obviously that's loosely, right? Because those guys move all over that San Francisco offense. You're going to see Deebo Samuel in the backfield with Christian McCaffrey out wide, all those other things. But just kind of looking at how the New Orleans Saints in their secondary try their best to match up and keep up with these skill position players is going to be a ton of fun. And it's going to be a really interesting one to watch because, again, those guys are all over the lineup, and that's going to stretch this New Orleans Saints defense and stress this New Orleans Saints defense quite a bit. You've got a second-year guy in Paulson Adebo. You've got a rookie in Alontae Taylor, who I know, Croc, you and I talked about preseason. We really like the guy coming in, and he has been stellar so far, but this might be maybe his biggest test because of eye discipline, and that's really going to be challenged, I think, in this game. For sure.
Yep, the eye discipline and really matching the physicality of the 49ers, and not just in routes or, in the run game. But really, I mean, you watch guys like Brandon Aiyuk. He's not the biggest of guys, 5'11", 205 pounds, but he's very physical in the run blocking game. And, when you are a defensive back, and I'll kind of speak for myself, man, you want to kind of come out and set the tone against guys that want to try to be the bullies. So if I'm Alontae Taylor or Paulson Adebo, I want to go out there and try to set the tone and bring it to the 49ers receivers early on and see how they respond to that.
Yeah, there's nothing. If there's anything that those two guys are lacking, it's not physicality and it's not confidence. That is absolutely for sure. So what they don't have in experience, they do make up in those. Go ahead, bud.
Can I just say, Aiyuk discipline on one side, and then on the other side, Deebo against Adebo.
How cool is this? How cool. See, this is why the Saints and the 49ers need to be back in the NFC West. Thanks for stopping by, BP. We appreciate you. This is why we need the NFC West rivalry back.
Yeah.
This is why we need it. Instead of wasting time with the Falcons. Ain't nobody got time for that. What we do have time for are some predictions. What we think this New Orleans Saints at San Francisco 49ers game is going to end up looking like. We'll talk about things like score. We'll talk about things like game flow as well. We're going to be breaking all that down here as we continue on and wrap up this crossover Thursday edition, Locked on 49ers, Locked on Saints. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. We're going to be looking at their lines for the New Orleans Saints game here up against the 49ers. Spoiler alert, the Saints are underdogs. What's worse than an underdog? I mean, they are
a dead dog.
They are buried. They are under and gone dogs in this one, but they might be able to pull the upset. So if you feel like that could happen, BP's kind of saying, hey, wait, pump the brakes on the expectations a little bit. If you feel like he is, or maybe you think they're just going to take the points, cover the points, maybe you can head over to Bet Online and get in on that, as well as a ton of other odds. Chris Olave, who we've discussed today, plus 300 for Rookie of the Year right now, right behind Kenneth Walker III. So lots of different things that you can get in on. Plus there's NBA, MLB. Well, not MLB right now, but you got some future stuff that you can get in on. And then there's also NHL, esports, auto racing, whole bunch for you to check out. They are your number one source for all things sports wagering over at Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Simply Safe. Guys, I use Simply Safe all the time because I live in New Orleans. And so, and when I say I use it all the time, I don't mean that my house gets broken into all the time. I just mean that I have it, right? So we've got it. You got a box shipped here. It has like 30 different pieces of just a bunch of stuff to make sure that you're completely taken care of. You got your home base station. You've got an exterior cameras. You've got keypads. You've got glass break detectors. You've got hazard sensors as well to detect things like carbon monoxide, fire, all of that. Really, really cool stuff to make sure that you are all taken care of. And it's Simply Safe, Simpli. And if you want to check them out, you're going to be able to get the home security system for 50% off. That's their biggest offer this year, and you are not going to want to miss that. If you have ever been in a situation to where you have been in need, or even you're just like leaving for the holidays and stuff like that, and you want to make sure that everything is taken care of, you're going to get that 24/7 monitoring agent from Simply Safe. Their tech support staff is always there for you. Their advanced technology to make sure that break-ins and things like that are, legitimate, to make sure that you're getting priority police response is all there as well in an emergency. Their Fast Protect technology, it's all there for you. So don't miss this chance to save big on the only security system that we will recommend. Get 50% off of any Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl today. It is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. At simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Are the New Orleans Saints safe in their trip to the Bay Area? Guys, I'm going to lead this one off with my prediction. I'm just going to give a score prediction because I think game flow is going to be interesting to watch. I feel like the 49ers and the Saints both maybe found that play calling, the identity that they wanted to find in week 11. Like, things just looked really good from Shanahan's side. Things looked really good from Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael's side with getting Taysom Hill more involved, a guy whose name we haven't been able to bring up yet. We've learned now that the more you take Andy Dalton off the field, the more you have Taysom Hill on the field, the better the team looks. I don't think that goes away on the road. No turnovers last game, only 2 penalties last game. The Saints have to travel that. They have been an undisciplined team in those 2 areas, however, and that could be the difference in this game. They've got to travel. It's on the road. It's going to be a hostile environment. This is a really talented San Francisco 49ers team. Things can get out of hand early, and it's tough for me to pick the Saints here. 9.5-point underdogs. Guys, not only am I taking the Saints to lose this game, I am taking the 49ers to cover. I've got them 28-17. Maybe I'm trying to jinx them. Maybe I'm not. I just cannot see this New Orleans Saints team that has not won 2 games in a row yet, because they haven't been able to establish a consistent identity, going on the road and getting a win of this magnitude when you have a San Francisco 49ers team that's coming in with the amount of confidence they just instilled in themselves against a division opponent on Monday Night Football. Really, really tough for me to pick the Saints. Croc, how do you see this game going?
Covering the spread, that's a tough one. I do have the 49ers winning, but 9.5 points, that's a lot of points to have to cover. I thought it was a lot of points last week, and the 49ers said it's not enough points, and they literally
20.
just destroyed the Arizona Cardinals. I'd say when you look at this team and their inability to really get Alvin Kamara going and not a whole lot going outside of Chris Olave, I do see a scenario where the 49ers really kind of smother the offense and kind of pull away from this later in the game. So I'll say the 49ers win, and I'm taking the 49ers giving up 9.5 as well.
And BP, what are you looking at, bud?
Yeah, and I talked about it being a trap game. I wouldn't necessarily put my money on the 49ers losing this game, though. Mm-hmm. And I am starting to be a little bit more of a believer. The 49ers have been so up and down, and everyone wanted to crown them a little early. But after seeing these last 3 weeks, it's starting to look a lot more like this team is scary to play against. And I would not want to be the New Orleans Saints rolling into town. You have to hope that maybe they're a little jet lagged, maybe looking past the Saints a little bit. Maybe you get old bad Jimmy back, and you get that robber coverage, and he doesn't recognize it. But that's where Jimmy, like if Jimmy's going to play like he has been, it's lights out, because you can't play the 49ers straight up because they have too many weapons, right? On both sides of the ball, just too many stars at every level. And if Jimmy's going to play like that and not throw the ball to the other team, and then even make big plays on top of it and try to take advantage of some of those coverages, which he has recently, that spells trouble for the Saints. And so, yeah, I got to take the 49ers in this one. And if I'm forced to take one side, I would probably give up the points based on what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. If the 49ers were playing in New Orleans, I'd feel a lot better about taking the points with the home dogs. Uh-huh. But just seeing the way the 49ers are playing, it's really hard not to believe right now. And now that we've all three picked the 49ers,
they will lose. Yeah.
That's when the upsets happen. Yeah. The NFL is chaos, man. I'm telling you.
Ross's plan worked.
Listen, I think that there are two names here that are going to be in the sideline that this game is really important to. D'Amico Ryans, who has put together a phenomenal defense over in San Francisco. And, we talked about the second half points not being allowed over the course of the last 3 games. I think that this is one of those games that you have another fourth in a row, very strong showing that could potentially have a big impact for his offseason opportunities that might be coming about. And then Dennis Allen. If Dennis Allen wins, I don't think that there's anything negative that happens if Dennis Allen loses this game, because I don't think anybody expects him to win it. But the New Orleans Saints head coach, if he wins this game, I already think he's in New Orleans again in 2023. But if he finds a way to coach this team to win this game against the San Francisco 49ers, it's all but said and done at that point. He has his job in 2023. Again, I'd be surprised if he didn't in the first place, but this would definitely be a solidifying moment for him. I think huge for D'Amico Ryans as well. So
Russ,
we're looking at.
Can I ask you on the other side of that? The 49ers have been a little Grim Reaper-ish on teams. The Carolina Panthers fired their head coach. We saw 2 assistants fired this week. Cliff Kingsbury might not be long for this world. Steve Keim, the GM of the Arizona Cardinals, might not be long for this world as far as their NFL jobs go, based on what happened on Monday Night Football in prime time. Could this go the other way if there's a really bad loss by the Saints? Could the 49ers be a team that knocks out another coaching staff? Or would Dennis Allen have to find a scapegoat on his staff that's not him necessarily to save his own job going forward?
Yeah.
Is there potential for a one and done situation?
That's a great question. I think that if the Saints lose this game, what you definitely won't see, no matter how bad the loss is unless everybody has turned on him, Dennis Allen fired in season. He's a first-year head coach. All of that, organizations don't fire guys that are in the middle of their first year because that's a stain on the organization, blah, 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 blah. But if the Saints come out and struggle on offense, maybe they start asking questions at offensive coordinator, right? Pete Carmichael was a guy that, was originally going to stay on staff, but not be the OC, didn't even want to interview for the head coach job, stuff like that. And then eventually became not only the OC, but also the play caller now. So if this ends up being a game to where they feel like they really figured something out last week in their win against the Los Angeles Rams, and they come into this one and the script isn't there for whatever reason, maybe that's a question that starts to get asked. So I think it would be ancillary or the guys around Dennis Allen, as opposed to really having an impact on Dennis Allen, because again, nobody really expects him to go in and win this game right now anyway. So, that I think that ends up having the impact for sure. But yes, they have been Grim Reaper-ish. We'll see what that ends up meaning for the New Orleans Saints. If anything, it would be Grim Reaper for their any remaining playoff hopes that they have. But at 4-7, still firmly, quote, in the hunt. Don't you love that phrase? In the hunt, along with.
It's a hell of a division there, man.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. It's wild over here. It's crazy in the NFC South. That's why we need the old NFC West back. All right. Anyway, guys, such a pleasure. Really, really appreciate always being able to chop it up with you guys and get the best information available on the San Francisco 49ers. Brian Peacock, Eric Crocker, hosts of Locked on 49ers. Make sure you go and check them out. They'll have their additional episodes up getting you ready for this game as well. Same thing with Locked on Saints. We'll have our matchup episode on Friday to get you all ready for everything that you need. So we appreciate you making Locked on 49ers, Locked on Saints your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure you go and check out Locked on Sports Today. Biggest reactions, take of the day, biggest stories, all the stuff that you need. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with the Locked on local experts, getting all the insight that only Locked on can provide. You can find it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you very much for joining us for another crossover Thursday here on the Locked on Podcast Network. We'll see you soon. Remember, it's your team every day.